you want me to start or pause it?
All right, good evening. I'm Paul Kumpamoller. I'm the chair of the City of Groton Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to call our meeting for August 20th, 2024 to order at 6:34. First item on the agenda is the roll call. So I am here, Ms. Bergeron is here, Mr. Boris is here, Mr. James is here, and Mr. Rusk is here. Ms. Lothrop is excused. Mr. Jenkins is not here. So next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from July 16th of 2024, the regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Rusk. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Boris. All right. Any comments, changes on those minutes from July 16th? I don't have any, so there's no other comments. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, so the minutes are approved 5-0-0. All right, next up is the minutes from the August 13th, 2024 special meeting. Our motion to approve. From Mr. Boris. And second from Mr. Rusk. Any comments? Anybody have any changes on those? I only have one, and that's that the date at the top says August the 12th. And the meeting was on the 13th. So,
No, ongoing is misspelled in ongoing business.
and also in item A under ongoing business, it's talks about the meeting on August 19th, and that's actually August 20th. So. We'll take a cut and paste there. I mean,
Yes.
that happens all the time. All right,
I move we approve the minutes as amended.
thank you, Mr. Rusk. Is there a second? Mr. Boris, okay. All right, anybody have any other comments, changes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right. It's 4-0-1. Mr. Cameron. I'm sorry, Mr. James. Abstains. All right, regular meeting. We don't have anything on the agenda, but we had talked in July about looking at that. Anybody had any comments on the bylaws? And any suggested changes? Does anybody have anything, any issues with the bylaws that need to be fixed? Okay, so.
Have not reviewed them.
Okay. We can carry it. To next month. All right. Next item is ongoing business, which is the discussion of the possible zoning regulation amendments. That's the first item there, and guess we'll pick that up, Leslie. We're gonna go through, we're gonna start with the use table.
Sure.
Is that where we want to start? All right, so I think the way to do this is we'll go through it line by line, and I'll ask anybody if they have any comments or changes on what is in the version that was, that wasn't distributed on, this is the 20th version, correct? Or the-
Sent it out on Friday?
Friday?
Yes, 8:20.
Yeah, they say that my draft says 8:20, so. So mixed use residential, first line, any changes from anyone?
I have a suggestion,
Okay,
just put a star or one next to these so that they know to look down below for the.
I'll for the footnote. Yeah,
Well, there is, in the header,
well, there's a.
if you look at the top of the column,
Yeah.
there's an asterisk.
There's a number 7 under space required, spaces required.
Well, this was gonna be, there's a footnote about any structure over 50 feet at street level shall require a special permit.
Is that true in any of the GCR districts? Because the way this reads now, it's only true for the GCR 75 with how that asterisk is.
Right.
So I just want to confirm that's how we.
Well, the purpose was no building in the other 4 zones will exceed 50 feet at street level.
Okay.
And what we found was we were including that caveat in every block all the way down the column. And it became kind of cumbersome. So it was easier when we looked at buildings over 50 feet requiring a special permit. There are other purposes, buildings at 50 feet or less that didn't necessarily require a special permit. And we didn't want to exclude them from the 75 zone. So we just thought the catch-all caveat about over 50 feet took care of the special permit concern. And we could focus on the other purposes in the GCR 75.
So anything in that column would need a special permit.
No, anything over 50 feet requires a special permit, not necessarily everything in that column
Okay.
requires a special permit.
All right.
That's why we try to make it easier.
Okay, multifamily apartment building 3 plus dwelling units. Anybody, any changes on that one? Okay, that one looks good. Adaptive reuse to multifamily dwelling,
That matches what I had.
okay. Row house, and we have a definition for that. And so does that look right to everybody? Good. Duplex residential. Looks good.
I had permit for the GC.
Special permit in GC.
No, not special, just permit by right for GC.
Oh, no site, not a site plan.
And I had a site plan for GC 35.
I had a special permit there from the spectrum.
No, that's fine.
I have what I have agrees with what is written here, I have site plan for the GC. And special permit for GC 35, so. We can sort it out.
I don't know that I have
What do you have?
well, I have special permit in duplex under GCR 35. I don't know that looking at it in this light that I think that a special permit is necessary, but
I have site plan for the.
in your notes. I guess my thought is, it's an existing use on adjacent properties. And
May
Yeah,
not
the
be
site-
adjacent properties, duplex is gonna be the same property. With 2 dwelling units.
I think. that-
No, I understand. What I'm saying is, that is an existing use on properties adjacent to this zone. So it wouldn't be incongruous with the adjacent properties.
Got it.
That's what I meant by that. And. Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Necessarily increase the dwelling unit density. We're still talking about GCR 35, so. I just don't, looking at it tonight, I don't know that.
Additional some-
Right, I just don't know that a special permit and a public hearing is necessary for that.
What already is in our regulations. Duplexes, two-story are already here, so I agree with you.
Right, it's already an approved use for.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, the site plan would seem to make sense for that, right? Change at the site. And also, Jason, you mentioned, by right in the GC zone.
I think only because it's an existing purpose.
I have P.
Okay, yeah, so, okay. Yeah, I think that's what was there originally, in this P, so. Everybody okay with, by right? Okay,
I'm sorry, once more.
For duplex residential.
Yep.
P for
Got it.
GC and site plan for GCR 35.
So we both come down.
Right.
Got it.
all right. Single family residential. We've got site plan for GC and special permit for GCR. Which is,
And I have the same thing up above the P. Yeah.
I wasn't here for last week's conversations, but my question is just, is there any particular reason why single family residential is put under more scrutiny under this for the same zones as than duplex residential would be?
I think the reason we went that way was because we were steering toward a single family residential in the GCR 35 being not consistent with the goal of the restructuring of the zone for housing density in that zone.
But there are a couple of single family
Right.
homes there, so as a way of keeping them from being non-conforming.
But can we go as far as special permit?
I wouldn't do that. Special permit is pretty. There's a lot to do for a single family house, and we don't require that for any single family. It's very unusual for a single family to be required to. Special permit.
I think in your discussions last week, you said we never get single families.
Correct.
That goes through.
Planning off, it all goes through the building department.
so that means that would make it by right then.
They are, yeah, they are, right?
So do we want to make both of those P, or do we still want to have a site plan for a,
The P is by right,
right?
so definitely keep those, and the question is whether you want to jump up to the site, to a site plan,
In GC 35,
right,
right?
for a duplex. You said yes, for a single family.
I think making single family match duplex would make sense.
Yeah, I agree. P under GC, site plan under GCR 35.
Yes.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So I do have another question, however. Back to what Jason considered earlier, when he said that obviously we want things to. Our aim is a little bit maybe more high density. I don't know if that's the word we're looking for, right? So what is the thought behind site plan in GCR 35 when we allow it by right in GC? what makes, my question is, what makes GCR 35 special? In that both duplex and single family should be site plan required. Compared to GC.
Most of our motivation in GC is to, because we're talking about a zone that has existing properties on it, we're trying to avoid shaking up the permissions required or the, you know, the requirements within that zone, because then we've got properties that'll be, you know, they'll have to be grandfathered, or that will be, you know, out of sorts with the regulations. So we're trying to avoid shaking up GC as much as possible. But I agree with you. I think permit by right for a single family in GC is consistent with what, you know, some of the properties that are there already. And site plan for GCR 35, new zone, we have an opportunity to shape the regulations there. And so we're trying to right size the level of permissions required in the layers to get things done in that new zone. You know, not overly cumbersome, but not necessarily by right. If part of the goal is to create more mixed use development and higher density. So I'm, like I said, I'm fine with site plan for GCR 35.
Cameron, your point is, that you think that both the GCR 35, both the duplex and single family should be by right?
Well, I'm just wondering if there's a specific reason that we gave more scrutiny, we're giving more scrutiny to GCR 35, to building in GCR 35 as opposed to building in GC. Because there are buildings that currently do exist in GCR 35 that match both duplex and single family. The same reason why we're keeping by right in GC for these reasons.
Yeah.
You know, I understand obviously they're not allowed, but I would understand if it was in like GCR 50 or GCR 50.75, because those are different looking areas. But, you know, GCR 35 and GC look very similar when you're walking around, when you're on the street level, they look very similar to each other. So I just don't understand why we're putting more scrutiny to GCR 35 compared to GC.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, it's.
Do we have existing single families in GC? What will be GCR 35? Maybe we were talking about at the end of Church Street perhaps, or in the east.
It's a church.
Yeah, what was that name? That's a single?
GC. And then there's the.
So, yeah, excellent point. So existing properties aren't foul of the height restrictions, any of those things. But a new structure would only, if we left it site plan, a new structure would have to come to the commission at least for a site plan.
The difference between the GC and the GC 35 are uses, the height restrictions are the same. So,
Right. GCR 35 is what we thought could be a little more intensive use than the GC, which is only along North Street, and then there's a small section of GC closer to EB that's surrounded by a lot of smaller homes, right? So we thought the 35 could accommodate potentially more, not that we would be, I mean, we certainly wouldn't be prohibiting those types of, the type of development in that zone. Just making sure we understood how it was going to lay out and fit in with the rest of the surrounding area.
And I think it's, you know, fair and reasonable for us to require a site plan, and that new single family structures in GCR 35 would conform to all the other things, the setbacks and whatnot that that we're trying to accomplish. So I think I'm all right with that, because I don't think it trumps a existing properties use or makes it problematic for them. right?
Right.
Same height, same uses. The only difference is if it's a brand new structure from the ground up, it would have to conform to a few different things like setback.
Yeah, it's on the dimensional standards table. All right, good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, moving forward, community residential counseling facilities special permit across the board. That's, everybody okay with that? Cameron, that look okay to you?
Yep.
Accessory dwelling unit, so we've got check max height 25 feet with a question mark.
That's. Most of the comments in red are my comments to
Right.
myself.
Yes.
So, and I believe that that is what we had. For the,
I know say that starting with GCR 50, so 50, 50.75 and 75 were site plans for accessory dwelling units.
Yeah, I'm the same
I would say.
site plans for those. And the 25-foot high max, Leslie, I don't have anything in my notes about that, so
no, that's,
that's, but does that make sense to you, the 25 feet?
I believe when we were talking about ADUs, if that was what we discussed, I just need to go
Well,
back and check my.
I mean, we've got accessory structure max height 25 feet in dimension state,
That's what we,
so.
I remember we discussed that in one of the meetings.
Okay. So is that something that we need to,
we don't need to do anything with it. I just wanted to be sure they were consistent.
okay, but we don't need it, so we don't need to put that in the table, in the
Correct.
state, correct?
Correct.
Someone else. All right, so back to the question about site plan for the ADUs in GCR 50, 75, 50, 75 and 75. That's, I mean, based on the discussion at the last meeting, that was, well, I think what everybody's got in their notes. Cameron, do you have any comments on that? If that makes sense to you? Yep. All right, so those are gonna go to site plan. Except for the first, oh, I got the first two is by right.
But permit, yeah.
All right, next item is bed and breakfast. We had a special permit in GC because of the intensity of the use in a lot, area with the smaller buildings and more smaller residences. We have a site plan in GCR 35, GCR 50 and 5075. And also the table says GCR 75 is also a site plan. And I think my notes for bed and breakfast say special permit for GCR.
I think
75.
my notes also, we changed to special permit, but while I'm thinking of it now, I don't know if this is before or after we determined the 50-foot height caveat.
Yeah, good question. But so if we think about it, it was, I guess, I mean, some of the discussion had to do with, what kind of building would be built on, what kind of a bed and breakfast would you potentially build on a GCR 75 area, which is, most of that is already heavily commercial. Other than where the roller rink used to be, right? So I guess it seemed to us that would be an unlikely use, but we wanted to be, I guess, have some discussions about whether that was a good use for property in that area, in the GCR 75.
There is a limit. think it's 6 dwelling units
in our
The definition.
from the definition. Which I think is a little small for
Yeah, so that's not,
it.
right. And I should be okay with the next.
I would too.
So you would put next for 70, GCR 75 for bed and breakfast.
Huge Victorian.
Well, it can't be more than six, can't be more than six. bedrooms.
6 stories.
No, well, six
Six
bedroom,
bedrooms.
bed and breakfast.
6 units, you know.
There goes my roller rink themed bed and breakfast.
Yeah, so, okay, you have to rebuild the roller. What do you, Kevin,
Bed
you,
and breakfast,
we put the next there? Okay.
6 or fewer guest rooms.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, so the GC 75 is next.
yes. Even 50, 75 would be. Next up is hotel in motel. We've got an X in GC just because the intensity of the use didn't seem appropriate for that. The area that's remaining in GC, and we've got special permit to go in everywhere else
That's right.
for hotel. We took out roomers and boarders, and we just have rooming and boarding house, and there's special permits all across.
I'll
The thing
go,
about the rooming and boarding houses is that they are. There is at least one, there's at least 2. In the area that we're talking about. And to get more intense than that, I think because of the possible proximity to a single family house. I think you wanna. People want to be able to.
yeah, I had no issue with it, going to a special permit.
No, but I had site plan for GCR 35. It's special everywhere else.
So GC, either site plan or special.
No,
permit?
GCI it's special, but I'm fine with it being special across the board. It's not ruling it out. It's just requiring a little more. input.
And yeah, and I mean, and we have them, I mean, they've already existed residentially in some areas. But I think we have, you know, we should be careful about where they go, what the impact is. Office, less than 1,500 square feet was all by right, so Ps. Site plans for 15, less than, for greater, I'm sorry, 1,500 to 10,000 is the site plan across, and then greater than 10,000 is a special permit.
Right.
And let's see, museum and library, we have site plans all the way across, correct?
Yes. Same with place called assembly.
Yep. That's what I have in my notes. Cameron, have you got anything that, you got any, if you think scanning is. Okay. Okay, conference center, we had a definition, which was good, I
Mhm.
was well defined, I thought. And we Xed them out on, everything, but the GCR 75, which is a special permit. Makes sense to everybody? Cameron, you okay with that?
Colleen did have one comment of the possibility of combining that with assembly, public assembly, including worship above. My only hesitation, and I understand that, I actually went through the thought cycle as well. The only hesitation I have with that is that the uses allowed are different,
I'm sorry,
so that we're allowing,
you would add conference center to
she had
a place of
suggested
public
that we
assembly?
consider that. Adding, combining conference centers and places of public assembly.
Well, I guess we could, but we're talking about treating them different,
Correct.
so.
I have a question on the definition for we use for conference center. I think it would be we might want it to narrowly focus a bit more. It says may include food service, lodging, or other compatible uses. I mean, could I just build a hotel and say there's a conference room in it at the conference center?
Well, it's interesting because we did spend quite a bit of time on that, talking about, you know, a space within a hotel being an existing known purpose for that big room in the hotel being used for conferences.
Mhm.
And that we were so we didn't have a definition last week. We were looking at a dedicated conference center as maybe having a separate definition, like,
Talking about a meeting room being a hotel versus.
I agree, but it says may include food service, lodging, or other compatible uses, so I could make, like, you could build a hotel. Basically, and put multiple meeting rooms in it and say, well, it's a conference center because
Right.
it has so many meeting rooms in it. And also, we're allowing lodging within conference center. But I guess it doesn't matter anyway, I just reconfirmed that, you know, we require special permits on hotels anyway, so it's not like you'd be getting away with anything.
right,
Doing something like that.
you know, you could only build one that you call a conference center in the 75 zone.
And it doesn't, you're still doing special permit.
Right, still requires a special permit, so.
Yeah.
Okay, theaters, we had a special permit in the GC zone, just because again, the intensity of the use in an area that's got, surrounded by smaller properties. And we have site plan and all the other boxes. Makes sense, everybody okay with that? Parking structures as a primary use, we had special permit in GC again because of the intensity of the use, site plan everywhere else. The surface parking lot is an accessory use. We had site plans everywhere. As an accessory use, I guess I think that would make sense. Because the surface parking lot, but if it's an accessory use, would be an accessory to some other appropriate development in that zone, correct? A commercial development or some kind of other residential, multifamily residential, correct?
Yeah, and in the southern part that we haven't been discussing, but the southern section of GC does have surface parking as an accessory use on existing property.
Accessory system.
So did you change anything?
No, site plan everywhere.
Only that in this new version. I don't see the words accessory use.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we have as accessory use, correct? This is my notes.
Oh,
This
the
is-
rest,
that's my comment. I was okay with that as an accessory use, but. Okay, so Leslie, you've got that. Change
Surface,
right
the
there. First surface parking lot goes as an accessory use.
correct.
And then the surface parking lot is a primary use.
The special permit and then site plan and the last four.
That's what we have.
I had, in my notes, I had only site plan in GC. They didn't have anything for the other four zones. No notes, positive or negative.
Under surface parking lot primary use, I
Yeah.
have all X's.
Yeah, and I think that's more in line with what I thought our discussion was. That we didn't want to see those properties just become
Parking lot.
single level parking.
Right.
Raised parking structure, we'll talk about that, but just parking lots is not consistent with the goals that we're filtering this through the plan of conservation and development.
Yeah, so my comment to Leslie about this says, my notes agree with what is here, but do we really want to use these spaces for surface parking as primary use? And I think not.
Now we
I
wanna go
mean,
back to X's.
I would go back to X's.
I would leave special permit in GC. Just because of there's an existing parking
Yeah.
lot, primary use
Right.
parking lot property in GC right now,
Right.
or GC.
But we wanna, we wanna make it more challenging to do that, right? We want to convert more of those lots in the GC zone to just a parking.
So special permit and then X's,
X's for
Four.
the rest. Yeah, four X's. Special permit followed by four X's. Playground as an accessory use that we had as by right, as long as it's an accessory use. So, can count towards open space, but we don't want to see the lot where the roller rink used to be turned into a playground. Right. All right, automotive. Gas station service, rental repair, special permit, vehicle repair, special permit, vehicle dealership.
We had special permit in GC and X's.
That's what I have too.
Yeah.
For everything.
for dealership.
Special permit in GC because it already exists there.
Hmm.
And then X's in the other zones because we didn't want to see.
Yeah, for only vehicle dealership is my question?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Everything
All
else
the
is
rest of them special permit.
Special permit, which is consistent with the use requirements as well. So civil support, fire, police, cemetery and funeral home, we get special permits for all of them. Okay, we're good there. Healthcare facility, nursing home, special permit across.
No, we had special permit and four X's.
Yep.
Originally.
Yep, that's what it is in the original one too. So. Yep. Special permit and access.
Yeah.
With us, Leslie.
I think so.
Outpatient facilities, we've got C office, because I think our discussion was, what would be the difference between an outpatient medical and a facility and then. Because we included medical offices under office, so. Business personal service, this looks just like the office. Where it's by right, just by building permit for less than 15,000 square feet. And then site plan moving up a level, 1,500 to 10,000 and special permit for 10,000 or greater than 10,000. That's consistent. Retail is also the same based on size. With the smaller ones by right, the medium size special site plan and the largest ones by special permit.
But you did put a cap on the size, so no greater than 15,000 square feet.
Is that,
Is that by design? The rest of them all,
On the vestigial
The rest of them are
conversation
all
that we
greater than
had,
10,000.
it wasn't last week, but I
Yeah.
don't remember when it was.
so the only reason why I think that that was intentional was that you wanted to avoid like a big box store.
But a big box store is. That's a big difference.
Right.
So,
Did you, is there a reason to limit it to less than 15,000? Is it,
again, it came from a studio conversation that we had.
yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't recall it. So basically what we were saying would be then, if it's greater than 15,000 square feet, it's not allowed, because it's not in the. And what's a 15,000 square foot? Is it-
CVS's are between 10 and 15, they're generally about, yeah, it's. I would say that's a good. Visual.
Okay. So it could, would be big enough to accommodate, uses for people who like live in that area.
It could be the first floor of a
And
Mixed use
for
building, yeah.
a mixed use building, yeah. Really be nice. Farmers market, those are, by right,
I think that we called that an accessory use.
we said temporary. I
Yeah,
Because somebody made the comment, nobody has a permanent farmer's market. I said, I've been to one, and then somebody said, not around here. It's true.
but do we, so. Do we wanna, are we okay with just saying as a farmers market temporary, as a temporary use or? I mean, I guess one of the thoughts was that, you could. The idea was that you could have a farmer's market, there was a housing development, say where the roller rink used to be, you could have a farmer's market there on that property. For the convenient for the residents and things like that.
My only hesitation is whether we call it temporary or accessory use. That's the only thing I'm weighing.
We don't have a definition of temporary, right? So-
Right.
we can go. But I think that, I do think that having it as a temporary. Because accessory implies that it's attached in a way to a primary that's in some way affiliated with it. So food service and hotel. And less likely to have a farmer's market in February. So I think temporary is a better description.
I'm okay with it. I mean, as long as we need a definition, we just have to consult Webster.
The other thing is, if it's temporary and if we find that there's something that's really successful. We can always amend the
Text it,
regulations,
yep.
or the commission can find that the interpretation of a temporary is, not more than 5 days a week or whatever. I mean, there's.
Cameron, did you have?
Okay, sale of alcohol package store, all special permit. And sale of firearms, all special permit.
Fishing. Or be protected.
Well, that's what everybody had.
Community garden, we added accessory use, which she added.
Yep.
And we did, my notes say we did change that to by right. As an accessory use
Correct.
in all the zones.
Hold on.
Yep.
We go back.
Yeah, sure.
Sale of alcohol package store, keeping permanent, special permit all the way
Permit.
across.
Yeah.
Same with sale.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then community garden accessory use, we've got by right as an accessory use. And a commercial greenhouse is all special permit.
Yeah.
the reason that I recommended that it be on, that a commercial greenhouse be special permit is that sometimes they have their lights on for very extended, like 20 hours a day. So we may want to regulate how the shaded from housing or something that may be in have a different adjacency depending upon what site there is.
Yeah, I mean, I've got special permits plus all of them in my.
Did we want to allow that purpose? In all those zones?
Especially in the, like the GCR 50, 75 and 75.
Right.
Yeah, that's worth a little discussion.
Because we started with, last week we started with, it was kind of hit or miss. We had a special, we had a site plan, permit, and then not in the 50, special permit, and then not in the 75. Is what the- Maybe those were not with any intentionality on Leslie's part, but I don't know, just looking at this, just a picturing the commercial greenhouse, I don't know that that's what we intend for the use of the larger parcels at the 75 or even the 50.
I agree.
I agree also, because when you think of, if we don't want a single layer of parking, we certainly don't want a single layer of greenhouse. And I don't see anybody building a 75-foot greenhouse.
So there, we did have a developer, they've ended up going somewhere else, but we did have a developer come in a couple of times last year about putting in a commercial greenhouse that was multi-story, hydroponics that would be I can't remember this, at least 3 or 4 stories, with housing above for the people that work there. Their model, they have a model for, they've done it elsewhere, and their model was that the people who work there, live there, and that it needs to be near public transportation. These are people who generally have limitations.
So that's probably why we changed
So
it to
that's
those
probably where that came from, yeah.
with some, yes, and some.
All right, so
Really, that they would only have been able to put something like where the roller rink was. So,
So if it's something that's gonna go in an area where the roller rink is, do we want it in the GC area? Well, it's not a GC area, but, okay.
so we're good with special permit across the board, or do we want to take it out of some of the 50, 75 and 75?
would actually,
I think it would make sense in 50, 75 in that area, because, I mean, if it's a commercial greenhouse, they're growing to make a profit, and for greenhouses especially, you need a large property to be able to do that. I don't see someone coming in with a commercial greenhouse idea on a plot that would be suitable for like a single family house. But like you said, for the roller rink, that would make sense for at least size wise as to what they need for a commercial greenhouse, because they can take up a lot of space.
So do we want to allow it in the GC?
I don't think so.
That's good, that's good.
I even cut it from GC 35.
Okay, I agree.
In the special permit?
Okay.
So, well, all right, just hear me out, thinking out loud here. understand the scale of the, I hadn't considered, a concept that like the one Leslie just described, but. And I see how that would work, maybe only work in the 75 zone, but, I'm just wondering if special permit gives us enough latitude to take. I think I just answered my own question. I think I've said 2 X's in special permit.
Where's the special permit going?
Everywhere else, 50, 75, and 75.
Because when you started to say that, it made me think of, so if somebody wants to build Leslie's example in the roller rink parking lot.
Yep.
Is there anything that tells us we can say no if it fits within the regulations?
I think public hearing feedback is what we have to lean on. That's why I stopped.
If it
Sure.
falls within regulations,
But you have more latitude with the special permit than you do with the site. The site plan is straight up.
no, I'm not saying site plan, I'm saying, do we want to have it X all the way across?
I think that's another option. It is, what I described is akin to light manufacturing, maybe medium manufacturing.
So maybe we take it out of here and well, I'd have to go back and look at what we have for light manufacturing.
The housing might be a bit of a wash if it's just employee residences, but development is development. And given the scale, I think only because we're talking about the scale of this and not 1-story geranium growing house, that it may have a place in those zones.
Okay,
And I think if we get it via special permit and we have the opportunity to take public feedback on it and the latitude to weigh it against P O C D and regulations. Yeah, I don't think we're forced to do anything we don't imagine at this stage doing if we leave it as a special permit option.
Can I suggest considering taking it out of the 0.50, because that means that potentially life will be going into the river. So for environmental reasons, that might not be the best thing, but where we're allowing the 50.75 to be shining, to the bulkheads of the bridge. And I don't think anybody would really.
Yeah, but, well, some of that 50.75 is also gonna be fronting on, could potentially be fronting at Bridge Street as well.
Not the
So-
75,
No, the 50.75.
right,
would-
So the
could front on
50
Bridge
part-
Street, right?
right, the 50 part. By special permit, we could we could try and work out an agreement where that's where the residential portion is, or that's where the retail portion might be with the grow lights in the back.
The more intensive use behind it, but can we require that if it's by a special permit? If it's allowed by a special permit, can we actually require it to be built that way?
I thought we had something about light pollution and boundaries anyway.
We are gonna, there is I had it done, I just haven't. The, foot candle.
It's a read ahead, but I mean, we haven't gotten to that section yet, but I think we can, just like site plan restrictions, we can restrict the cast of light in any of these zones.
Yeah, you can't cast it directly, you can't look at a straight up at a lamp from a street.
I say that,
Right.
I don't think there's any fear of the light pollution from a commercial greenhouse. Like you said, Paul, in the 75. And maybe by design in the 50-75, I think maybe keeping it out of GCR 50 is probably a good idea.
So do we have we don't have anything written so far, like specific regulation wise about greenhouses, right? I don't
At the
remember.
moment, I believe that's correct.
Is there any chance we could like table this discussion till we have something written, because greenhouses are very niche and. I think Susan, you're right, where if we do, even if we are talking about special permits, we have to limit it to we have to limit our decision to what's in the regulations. So I think if we can, like, this would be an easier discussion if we could see what greenhouse regulations look like. So maybe
Yeah,
if we
it
could
works
table the
both
conversation,
ways.
yeah, so maybe if we could table the conversation on this. Till we can see like at least some sort of outline of what greenhouse regulation would look like.
Okay, but I'm happy to draft it to what it is you want, just the sort of inverse of that.
Well, I don't know enough about greenhouses to speak about that.
I guess the question I now have is it better for us to take the term greenhouse out of the chart and consider that light manufacturing?
Could do that.
Yeah.
Could certainly do it.
And light manufacturing is special permit. And BP 35, 75, and 50. And just site plan for 50.
All right, I'm gonna make a note to myself. Um,
Hopefully we can-
Let's,
You're saying upgrade light manufacturing to special permits all the way across?
No, I'm just saying move greenhouses, consider it as light manufacturing. And I was just quoting what's written for light manufacturing.
so if we we delete commercial greenhouse from here. Yeah, and I just made a note to myself to consider putting commercial greenhouses in manufacturing. Let's keep going through and see what the evolution of the conversation is.
Yeah.
Okay. That.
All right, next group is education and daycare, college and universities are out. School with less than 25 students at peak use is a primary use. We've got site plan everywhere. And my notes have site plan for GCR and GCR 35, and then X's for the other four.
That's what I have too. We Xed it out of the figures.
School less than 25 students at peak is a primary use. So that's gonna be a relatively small.
That's the bartenders.
Yeah, right, so we, I mean, you don't really want that in the GCR 75, right? That's it.
Right.
We don't want those in there.
Ballroom dancing on first floor, apartments upstairs. Maybe works fine in GCR 35.
I don't know if this helps you, but I have site plan for the first two, X's in the last three.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I put site plan all across. So I don't know if we've changed it after.
Well, so this is. So
Oh, well, we did, what I have is as a secondary use
Yes.
site plan.
Okay,
That might be what you
yeah,
wrote down.
yeah,
Yeah, because the discussion about this was exactly, what if somebody wants to put a dance studio, a dance training school on the first floor of a multi-use building in GCR 75 zone.
Yeah, CBS goes out on first floor and, Arthur Murray moves in. We didn't want to rule it out as a secondary.
Secondary use, right? But it was a primary use, maybe. And I think that makes sense to make that distinction, because
So we're adding another row.
we're adding another row it's a secondary use row.
Yep.
And that may be the road that has site plan all the way across. So it's a secondary use in those.
That's what.
Or is it was secondary use or accessory, so I'm not sure. That's the focus. All right, high schools are out. Vocational training facilities are all special permit. They, I guess, could conceivably be large, right? Everybody,
But that's probably gonna be a state. Vocational schools are generally state run and they're gonna be able to. Do whatever they want.
well, they'd have to, I mean, yeah, well, they'd have to, especially if they acquired the property. That's. So anyway, we're, everybody on board with the special permits and what everybody's got. Middle and elementary schools, no specialized classrooms. We have those as special permits.
I have that if I can believe. One,
I think we were in both of those situations. Did anybody have a good definition for specialized classroom?
Well. You could imagine some high-tech training. With specialized equipment and things.
but was
You know,
that?
different than just tables and dry erase boards or tech boards. This would be. Training stations for welding or for electronic component assembly or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But would that be vocational?
Yeah, it very well could be thought of as vocational. I don't know that it needs its own.
Get back to that vocational, I think that would make more sense.
So what am I doing?
I don't know that we need specialized classrooms as a separate definition or a separate category.
Do we know what was intended with this? I mean, is there a definition in the existing regs for this?
You're asking.
Have you been taken over by Mr. Cannon?
There's nothing written so far.
We've got a whole section on specialized classroom that is defined in these regulations of subjects following, be entirely located within a building. Expand, enlarge, add on to, intensify or otherwise increase the square footage of the use or scope and services of programs authorized by the commission. Shall not provide overnight parking. Shall provide a buffer strip. Boundaries. Is this ringing a bell to anybody?
It is interesting that it's got different shared parking calculations than vocational.
Could specialized classrooms be for like adult education? Or special needs classrooms? Could that also be put under that umbrella? Because that wouldn't be vocational school, that would be something different. My only next question is, if you have specialized classrooms, does the less than 25 students supersede it? Could you make a larger than 25 students space as specialized classrooms?
It could be bigger than once.
Specialized classrooms, classroom or instructional space intended to provide instruction in specific subjects, including but not limited to engineering, drafting, accounting, or trades for adults not involving any offensive odor, noise, vibration, smoke, particulate matter, dust, objectionable effects and other studio style classrooms.
So drafting out welding.
I
It sounds to me like vocational training.
I think it goes back to what we talked about at the last meeting, where one of the schools used to have specialized classes for Pfizer and EB students. I know I went there one night because they offered accounting also. And then I found out everybody else but me was having their tuition paid.
But those, well, yeah, I mean, well, so,
Other studio style classrooms for the purpose of providing instruction in dance, art, theater, yoga, martial arts, music, etc. No meal service, overnight activities or outdoor activities shall occur on site. Office and storage space that supports primary instructional use is allowed.
Okay.
so this is where like the dance studio actually comes in, not so much as, not so much where the school with less than 25 students at peak. Right, I mean, that's at least based on that, the definition you just read, that sounds like specialized classrooms is aimed at that.
Then
Right.
we go back to the
I don't
25 students and we do the less than 25, less than 75. less than
Or like we
50,
did
or
with,
whatever the size.
with, you know, with office space, for example. No, we could take a shot at that and see, I mean, but it seems like, you know, that a lot of these things do seem to fall to come, you know, I mean, there's some commonality between the specialized classrooms and the vocational training, and they're all very similar and, you know, could be treated the same. And if we can, you know, I guess it's, you know, it's no harder to have, you know, another line that requires something different for specialized classrooms, but, you know.
Well, if we just took out vocational and just called it a training facility.
Yeah.
Is that what, Cameron, is that what you said?
Yeah, I think that would work. I'm just, thinking if someone wants to open a dance studio here. And they come in and they say, I want to open a dance studio, what's that gonna be under? Where are we gonna point them under? But I think if we do training facility, maybe we could say that that would fall into training facility.
I would agree with that, because when I think of a dance. I don't call it a dance classroom, it's a dance studio. So I don't necessarily think these are the items that you listed before are technically classrooms.
Also, when you look up specialized classrooms online, Google comes up with adult special needs education classrooms. So just for ease of, like. Anybody reading these who isn't like looking deep into it and just Google's definitions. I
So
think
if we
it'd be
take
useful.
out specialized classrooms,
And just change vocational to just training facility. And then broaden that definition.
Right, I mean, you could just pull in, you could pull in some of the wording from specialized classrooms into the training facility and lump it all into one.
Make it all special thing.
Vocational / arts.
I think the less specific we make it, the more likely we are to get things like that.
We'll just want to make sure that we consider the impact limitations. Like specialized classroom was no dust, no vibrations, that sort of thing.
Right.
So Jackhammer School on the 3rd floor of a multi-use building, right? If we just say training facility and the Jackhammer School wants to move in, we need to make sure that we've got some boundaries.
And you can do that as conditions of approval for that specific use.
And do we really need a public hearing for a dance studio?
Not in the GC or GCR 35.
If it's
Fewer
a
than 25
training
students.
facility, if we take that line out and consider it a training facility, it's special permit all the way across.
Yeah, if you want to put a dance training facility in the GCR 75, it'll be a special permit. But if you want to do 25 students or less dance school in the smaller two zones, it's just a site plan.
So you're saying it would go up under school?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, so, I mean, someone's got, have to do with the way we write the definitions.
I mean, if the dance students are like me, it's a public news.
that's why we're not letting you apply.
You would-
So are we taking out,
It sounds like Jack Henry School of Dance.
Is the tap school gonna go on that same board too?
are we taking out special
Specialized
permit?
classrooms.
Specialized classrooms are gone. We're gonna
Right,
also-
but are we in the training facility one?
We're just removing the word vocational.
Vocational and we're
And we're
gonna,
keeping special permit across the board.
And then that would be like a conversation they have with you about whether it should count as a school with fewer than 25 students in the training.
Right. And those kind of conversations happen all the time.
And we'll need to look at the other places where 6.10 specialized classes exist, like in parking calculations and
Yeah.
the definitions of the specialized classrooms. How are we gonna, interlock those with training facility?
All right, let me throw this out there. What if in the school less than 25 students, we call it school training facility? And then the dance class would fit under site.
I'm sorry.
What are you trying to limit here? Where they can have
I-
dance class?
No, I'm trying to make it easier to get a dance class than to have a public hearing.
Special, or a site plan for dance class, fewer than 25 students.
Only if you're doing those two zones.
But again, I don't think of a dance class as a school. So that's why I'm saying change it to school / training with less than 25 students. But then if you get a training with less than 25 students, but it's heavy equipment, then it's just a site plan. So I don't know what you want to do.
all right, so,
I just think school is too defined for some of the smaller things that might want to go in there. That's it.
well, again, it depends on how we write the definition. So, let's
Okay.
let
Leave that to Leslie.
let Leslie take a crack at the definition and see how.
Yep.
See what we think.
Okay.
All right, nursery school and childcare center, we've got site plan across the board. Which agrees with my notes, but,
I thought that and adult daycare were both site plan, and we thought that those are both state regulated, that we really didn't have a lot of input there. Is
I
that
need to
accurate?
check, I need to check. I think
Okay.
that's right. The other thing is because
I know that, all I know about that is what you told us.
better memory of what I said than
Okay.
I do.
All right, so more homework is due there.
The other thing is, I think that combining. Okay, I will.
well, the family home daycare we've got is just as a permit, a zoning permit. In all the zones, because that's, I mean, I think that is definitely in the state.
Yeah.
If it's a home, you can,
That's definitely,
that's
to
definitely.
treat it like a single family,
Yeah, you're not allowed to treat that different.
correct? Correct.
But I mean, the thing about the nursery school childcare center, I mean, that's gonna be a big childcare center on the GC 75. GC 75.
Well, use versus,
Size.
whole building, I mean, it could be You know,
Right,
it
right.
could be a quarter of the first floor of you know.
Well, again, that's different in accessory use. Yeah, I mean,
But also as a co-primary use, right? Because I think I misspoke when I was imagining CVS on first floor as being an accessory use. We were looking at mixed uses in, these are two primary uses. There's apartments up above and there's, you know, CVS on first floor. The retail is thought of as a primary use as well.
You can have two primary uses. Again, if it's gonna be. If it's a large piece of property that's building not just up 4 stories, but also out. There may be, you know, substantially more residential than there is commercial. And some of those things get finessed as I meet with applicants. Finessed in a good way. I mean, it's like, okay, look, I understand you want to do the mixed use, but you may not have a market for all of this commercial or retail. Why don't you think about building it so that you can change it to that, but also so that it can be residential. And it may change over time.
okay, so on the nursery school, childcare center and adult daycare. We need to check if they're limited by state statute, correct? And if they're not, then, you know, my question is, do we want to have those as primary uses in the GC 75 zone?
Right, I agree. I think we should, once we know whether or not we have anything to say about it, if we have something to say about it, then we need to look at it.
Okay, then we consider not allowing that use in the GC R 75
Or making sure that we define it as a
accessory.
primary or accessory, right?
Okay. All right. Food service. And the catering and food processing is site plan across the board. And then Leslie had it include cottage. That's is that your note?
That's my note to myself. There's language about cottage industries
Oh,
in
yeah.
PA 2129. That mostly, I believe, has to do with if you are baking in your house to sell, you know, pumpkin muffins or whatever. Then there are restrictions on how much space you can use. And whether you can, you know, what your, you know, establishing hours of transporting those goods to wherever you sell them.
But your note down there include food industrial processing is not allowed. And add definition of processing.
And that was based on something Sue said. I forgot what.
We're talking about Garbo and whether,
Correct.
Yes.
That was the
thank you.
light, and that was the light, that was in the discussion of light manufacturing, actually, was.
Yeah.
Including processing in that definition, so we get tripped up again by that. By discussion about whether it's manufacturing the processing.
yeah, I don't think our goal is to have a Tyson chicken plant where the goal was.
Just remember that's how Marcus.
Tyson chicken.
In our kitchen.
In our kitchen. Mention exactly what it is.
Two crops processed chickens, you know. I don't know.
All right. Outdoor cafe, we have, by permit across the, right?
Yeah.
Restaurant, everything's got site plan.
I have a question.
Yep.
What's the difference between an outdoor cafe and a restaurant? What is an outdoor cafe more specifically?
It's really just, outdoor seating that, and where you may or may not have service. So for instance, if you have a restaurant that has outdoor seating where wait staff comes out and takes your order,
Mhm.
that's more of an outdoor cafe. Outdoor seating would be, a couple of chairs and a table in the front of a ice cream store.
So could I make an outdoor cafe that wasn't a restaurant and then just make it by right without having to do site plan approval? So long as my wait staff goes outside.
Well, that's what she has now.
So that's what I'm saying, I think we should change it, so it matches restaurant.
Hmm.
Because there's, to me, functionally no difference between a restaurant that has outdoor seating and an outdoor cafe.
Wouldn't you have to get everything approved by what,
So, yeah, you'd have to do that for both, so why have one go under a level of scrutiny that's different than the other one?
I'm with you there. I think it should be a site plan. I'm just wondering if it should be allowed in all those zones.
I'd say why not, if you can build like the deck space on the outside, why not?
Sure, or perhaps we should limit it to an accessory use.
I think that'd be fine, an accessory use, specifying outdoor cafe as an accessory use by right would make more sense to a restaurant.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we could even. I don't know how this would work with our regulations, but we could even delete the outdoor cafe line and just allow restaurants to have outdoor seating. But I don't know what we have
That's-
currently there.
Yes, that you could do that.
or could we just put restaurant slash outside outdoor cafe? As one.
So here's the
Missing piece that we're looking for.
yes, here's the missing piece that you're looking for. Outdoor cafes are off. What research has shown is that outdoor cafes are more likely to be walked to than restaurants. So you don't add parking for them.
Okay.
And I have implemented this in other places and it's been fine. Now granted, nobody has the parking issues we have, so I say that with that caveat. But again, the goal is to build up enough residential density in this area so that there's enough of a market to sustain these uses.
So I'm still on a site plan for outdoor cafe, consistent with restaurant.
I mean, I like the idea of an outdoor cafe being a walkable thing, right? But I do think that encouraging buildings that don't have parking so soon isn't a good idea either, because we're not built up to the point where we can reliably have areas that don't have parking. You know,
There's not
does that
no
make
parking,
sense?
there is parking for restaurants.
Well, not for outdoor cafes. So I'm saying if we do this and then the very next day an outdoor cafe moves in and they don't have a parking requirement, so they don't care and they don't put in parking. We're not built up in these areas yet where that would be something we want, where buildings aren't considering parking. So I don't know, maybe that's a conversation for the future when we are in that position. But to me, functionally, there's no difference between an outdoor cafe and a restaurant that has outdoor seating. So we shouldn't differentiate between them because it just adds confusion.
So you just get rid of the outdoor cafe line.
That's my thought.
It's a subset of restaurant site plan.
Works for me.
So with or without outdoor seating, restaurant with or without.
Let them bring the site plan and discuss how they want to present the restaurant.
I think if we just allow restaurants to have outdoor seating, that's fine.
Well, that's like in a residential zone, isn't it?
Well, it can't be, they've got commercial business restaurant. Ford Lobster.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, it's right up against residential.
You shuck an oyster, is that processing?
Depends on the scale. All right,
25 or less.
Yes.
sale of alcohol for on-site consumption, we're treating that as a, I mean, basically, we're treating that the same as a restaurant, right?
And we did distinguish between package store being special permit and sale for consumption on site being
Same,
site.
right? For takeout food service, we also have the same. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I just have a process question. So if someone comes in and they say, I have this restaurant and I wanna serve alcohol for on-site consumption. That's not two separate site plans, correct? That's not a restaurant site plan and an on-sale of alcohol site plan. That's one site plan that
All
you.
goes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the separate sale of alcohol for on-site consumption is that. Why is it in there as a separate use?
Like a brewery.
Oh, well, that was like, we have, a brewery, I guess that
Okay,
would
that's
be.
the only thing I can think of.
The,
Well, maybe just a, you know, a pub. It doesn't necessarily serve food.
The barnyard in Groton town doesn't serve food, but they serve alcohol. So that would be the.
Yeah.
precedent.
sure,
And wouldn't it be nice to get a dog that serves drinks?
a dog that serves,
Dock.
a dock that serves.
Alcohol and body don't mix.
That's the coast.
No, just a tea.
If you had a restaurant that did not serve alcohol, that 2 years later wanted to serve alcohol, that would
And then it's
just
come
go
back.
back, they'd have to come back with a site plan. That would be a second site plan that they would have to come back for.
The only restaurants that don't serve alcohol are like McDonald's.
Right.
Anyway, well, I know, I guess like some place like Puffins.
Or they could apply to be allowed to sell alcohol and just not do it for 2 years for whatever their internal reason is.
So does this, I'm assuming that the sale of alcohol for on-site consumption site plan also includes things like the liquor license they have to get. This isn't a,
That's all state,
Yeah,
they have to do that through the state.
but they still have to
this-
do it before going. to the
Yes,
process.
but when they go to the state, the state makes them come back to us and say, are they, you know, in compliance with zoning regulations, and I need to sign off.
Well, without the state. Without the state
They got
approval,
nothing.
they can't do anything.
Right.
They can't, even if they had site plan approved by us, they still couldn't open.
Right.
Because, well, the distillery on Bridge Street is a perfect example, right? We approved that as a distillery, you know, several years ago. But using now, working with the state to get the alcohol permit to actually open the business. Correct, yeah. Okay. Takeout food service site plan across the board makes sense, similar, right? Historic institutional adaptive reuse is allowed by zone.
It's the uses that you're putting into them that are determined by zone, so this is. If you're doing an adaptive reuse, you can only put uses in that building that are allowed in that zone.
All right, accessory buildings are by site plan. Correct, everybody okay with that? Accessory use drive-through food service special permit in the GC zone. They're not allowed in the GC 35 or GCR 35. GCR 50 or GCR 5075, and their special permit in the GCR 75, right?
this is exactly what I have in mind,
Is there a reason we made special permit in GC?
because of the existing property.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and the,
What exists there that uses it?
Combis.
yeah,
Oh,
this
okay.
part of GC in this part.
The huge GC that we
Yes.
see.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, you have a special permit there because of the, the impact on the.
Well, no, I agree with the special permit. My question was why allow it if it doesn't already exist?
Right.
But it does already exist, so that makes sense.
And we've got drive-throughs as an accessory use, and it's the same thing. And that would be things like the credit union.
The credit union could be, picking up prescriptions.
Yep.
Right.
A car wash.
The car washes are their own thing, right?
There's some.
Accessory use other.
If the reason that that's there is if somebody needs to or wants two uses in on site, one of them is minimal, one of them is. I'll go back to the use of a kiln or pottery. Somebody makes pottery in a space that's the size of, just the platform here. But they have a retail store and they have, I don't know, it's bigger. But the uses are connected. The uses, one use is accessory to the other. You can't have a retail store for coffee mugs if you don't have a place that you're making coffee.
I'm not sure I followed that at all. What I'm worried about is accessory use other. Other than what? Other than the few that we've talked about here
Yeah.
already? Because that's a lot of special permits for a pretty broad accessory use category. You know,
So this would be any accessory use that's not a building or drive-throughs, then correct? Would that be? How?
special permit for all those accessory uses?
So I'm trying to understand what what exactly we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an apartment building and you've got an accessory use building in the back that stores the little tractor they use to plow the snow. You gotta have a special permit for the accessory building.
No, I agree.
I just think it's too broad to say
Well-
comma other and then
Yeah.
special
Well,
permit
that's,
all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, accessory buildings are site plan above that, and this. So,
So the question is what fits under other?
For use, accessory
Use,
use.
yeah.
Do we have a definition for that?
Trust me, I'm all about putting some boundaries up to allow us to, buffer against things we haven't thought of yet. I don't want to find benign uses that we are assuming are accepted by site plan. And then suddenly put somebody through the special permit ringer. For no good reason.
So the definition we have for accessory use. The use of land, building, or structure that's clearly incidental to and customary in connection with. And located on the same lot as the principal building is. An outbuilding usually houses a secondary use.
so,
Here, those are actually being used interchangeably, accessory use and secondary use in this definition.
Yes, and I think that in some of our discussion, we have kind of thought of dual primary uses. Where we thought of the non-residential piece as being an accessory use, and I don't think that that's really the way we mean to look at it. Like, you've got primary use, first floor retail, primary use, floors 2, 3, and 4 are residential. And then in the middle, in between those two buildings, you've got accessory use, meeting house and hot tub, or whatever, a rec center, right? We talked about, because you could get away with having a leasing office and a rec center at 25 feet tall, and that wouldn't limit them too badly.
what say you, Leslie, you're the What do you think in terms of,
I'm the.
you're the resident expert.
Um. The definition for accessory use that we have out here. So the parameters for being accessory in our existing regulations. Include the following, there are three. There are three things. One is customary, something commonly practiced, used, or observed, such that is considered conventional and typical rather than unusual. Didn't write these.
Understood.
Incidental. Something likely to ensue as a minor consequence of another activity or something that happens as a minor part or result of something else. Useless. Sentence.
The kiln for your pottery school. No, it's incidental to something else.
But a kiln, you might want to have a special permit for.
But if it's
Public
a-
hearing,
if it's an accessory use, would we want to treat it any differently than the primary use on the property? I mean, if it's a.
Okay, so if it's an apartment building.
Yep.
Which is the primary use.
Yep.
And then somebody wants to come in and put a nail salon in there. Which
dual
is-
primary use, not an accessory use.
a
The nail salon is not incidental to residential.
So that's a separate use,
It's a separate primary use.
That's a separate primary use.
with that,
Groundskeeping equipment to maintain a property, where the primary use is residential, that's an accessory use in an accessory building.
so
By
the
the
nail
definition. of work.
salon is an accessory use. in
No,
this
it's a
building?
primary use. In a mixed use development. Where we allow retail or offices or,
So that's only a site,
So what about something like a swimming pool for an apartment building?
incidental to the apartment building, it's an accessory use.
So do we
That's a
want a site plan or a special permit for a swimming pool in like inside swimming pool, if they build a second building for it?
I think that's site plan.
And I think I think it is an amenity of sorts that is between, we need to approve it, but it's between the tenants and operators.
Well, whether it gets built or not is based on what the, yeah, but how it gets approved, that's us, right? And and so we've been thinking is that's a site plan type of thing, right?
That's how I'm looking at it.
Rather than we'll get special permit on our sheet.
I agree, I think site plans or special permit is.
I
to
I
be
think
good.
site plan makes sense because where we can't define it. But it may come up at some point and we'll go, oh, there it is. At least we do have the site plan.
Bob, okay with that?
Yeah,
I think that if somebody comes to us with a use that takes us back, then I think that just naturally we find that it's not consistent with any of our defined uses, and so we have to look at a text amendment to allow a particular use. You know what I mean? I mean, we didn't manage to find enough commonality with existing uses for, say, the hookah lounge permit.
Mhm.
Right? So we left that as we would need a text amendment to allow that use. You know, so we weren't able to immediately go, "Oh, that falls into this category."
Mhm.
So I think if you're concerned about something that is, you know, out of bounds of what you're currently imagining, you know, reasonable accessory use, it comes in and it's so clearly not in one of our current definitions that I think it's a no-brainer. It's not something we're forced to accept without further consideration.
So is hooky, no,
It wouldn't be an accessory use anyway.
but I mean, is it anywhere in our regulation?
It's not, and that's why we didn't hear it. I mean,
It's why we didn't hear it, but if they had wanted to go forward with it, they would have had to come in
Text amendment.
with a text amendment, correct?
Yep.
And we're not obliged to put everything in here. I mean, I think that's, the one place that I think is, that I think what we're actually wrestling with is, what if it's something small enough? We're gonna make them come in with a text, which is what we have done. We've had people come in with a text amendment for things that are small, and the reasoning has been, I think not always the best reason.
That's why we're trying to broaden definitions like
Right.
retail, like technical training, like.
Accessory use.
Sure,
All right. So we're gonna,
So
we're
what are
gonna
we
go,
doing?
with this. We're gonna, the site plan, I think is where we came out of this. All right, next up is storage.
So wait,
Sure.
before it's site plan all the way across for accessory use.
Correct.
And are we taking out other, or are we leaving?
well, you have two other examples of accessory use above that. For drive-through.
Yep.
So I think other is fine.
Okay,
Agreed.
got it.
Okay. Storage, so we've got indoor storage is an accessory use. It's a site plan for, GCR 35 and GCR 50, and it's not allowed in any of the other, zones, any of the commercial zones.
Anybody else have anything different?
This is an accessory use,
Right.
right? So, do we want to not allow indoor storage in a, in the GCR 75 if, again, somebody wants to store the plow that plows the parking lot.
Yeah, I think what happened there was we started with warehouse and wholesale
Yeah.
with indoor storage,
Yeah.
we whittled that down. But I think it's wrong to think of that as accessory use. So I think indoor storage is a primary use, like remove the word accessory use there. Indoor storage as accessory use is kind of a no-brainer. If you've got a closet, it's indoor storage as an accessory use.
And
You know,
may
if
have
you've got a
tenant
little-
storage.
Tenant storage, right, yeah. The basement is where you can lock up your bicycle or whatever, but so an accessory use indoor storage, I think is, I don't know that we need to define that. But it's indoor storage as a primary use. For example, the first floor is commercial space, top floors are residential. The commercial retailer goes out of business. There's 10,000, 20,000 square feet there. Electric boat goes, hey, I've got stuff, that I need to store and I want to put it there. This is where we're deciding whether or not we want to allow that use as a co-primary use on a mixed-use development site.
Right, and that's why we had the X in the GC. And in the GC 50, 75, and the 75, right? Because we didn't want to be having that kind of thing happen in those areas.
I think
just-
basically what those X's are saying is that is not highest and best use.
Right, and or appropriate in the GC zone where it's a, where we're adjacent. There's more residential adjacency, right?
I just don't know why, looking at it now, why we have it allowed in 35 and 50.
Right, That's my question too.
even by special permit. Because if a whole floor of indoor storage with the occasional truck going to and from is not desired as a highest and best use in the big zones, then I don't know why it would be on the east side of Thames Street, north of Broad Street.
I guess the, you know, so the question would be, if it's a commercial, say it's an auto parts store, right? We've got one, there's one of those in the GC zone, right?
Yep.
And so does the area where the parts are stored in the back, does that count as indoor storage, or is that?
It's accessories to the primary use.
Accessory to the primary use, right? So. if
Primary
you-
use storage is, I need another warehouse. You know,
Okay,
I
Yeah.
have access all the way across. In indoor storage.
I agree.
okay with that.
Okay, indoor storage X's all the way across. The only thing that there is special permit for outdoor storage. As an accessory use.
I have site plan all the way across from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's different than what I have, but
Yeah, I think I do too, I have site plan for accessory use. But again, thinking of accessory, the way we're thinking about it tonight, it's incidental to the primary use. And our only concern, I think, with outdoor storage as accessory storage was retailers with lots and lots of outdoor storage. That we were concerned that would become, you know, like a space problem or, you know.
And that's not covered in the next two lines.
well, that's outdoor storage is the primary use, we don't want to allow, because we don't want to, we don't want the, you know, just piles of stuff. I mean, there's no, we talked about, you know, some industrial concerns might be looking for a place to store stuff. So the outdoor storage is an accessory use. So you know, the place that always comes to mind is advanced improvements, right? That's where it got messy with what was stored outside.
That would be accessory to the primary
Right,
use of the parcel.
right. So,
I forgot who told me this, but. I think when they got their approvals, they were supposed to be. Is it you?
At the last meeting.
That there were supposed to be trees and fences.
right,
So
they
there
didn't,
was
yeah,
that.
they didn't do what they were supposed to do. When their special permit got approved, which was actually even before my time, so. But anyway, so outdoor storage is an accessory use. What are we saying on those? We're gonna exit out, or because what? I have site plan,
Yes.
Site plan across.
yeah. Is that what we want? Okay. Leslie, you got, those are site plans across for outdoor storage as an accessory use.
Okay, and then. Sorry, what do we have for indoor storage primary use?
Excess.
Excess,
All the way across.
and outdoor storage is primary use or excess, and self-storage is excess.
So we only have, the only thing we're allowing under the storage section is outdoor storage accessory use. By site plan all the way across.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So you could have, you know, 10 parking spaces taken up with 2,800 flowers. Fans. I mean, you know, if your concern is, you know, the unsightliness or something of some, imagine, you know, types of outdoor storage accessory to a commercial venture on a property. You know, I don't know, that's just a risk you take, I guess, with the tenants you get, but.
And that would just be, that would fall under parking.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say, we've got other things that drive, you know, you must have so many spaces and those sort of things. And we've got boundaries that some amount of control over space making, you know. And then the rest of it is, you know, not really something we maybe should have control over.
Okay, so we're good there. Utilities, so telecommunications facility.
We have one in the GC zone right now, which is why we left it special permit,
Right,
and we exit out of the middle three.
right. And we have special permit, I have special permit in the GCR 75.
Yeah.
My comment to Leslie was my notes agree, but do we really want to do this?
My notes say special permit pending definition.
So
Yeah.
that we have a definition in the existing regulations. And the siting council controls an awful lot of this. What they don't control is what we did on Mitchell. With the-
Right. Because
It's
it's not,
just
this
a
is not,
building,
the
it's
siting,
not
the
a-
siting council it's involved, if it's a tower,
Right,
that kind of thing, right?
right,
It's a cell tower or a windmill.
and the
or
fall
something like that.
zone and, you know, they have, so there's more space that they control, but it's, so the telecommunication facility, towers and or antennas, accessory structures, equipment used, receiving or transmitting telecommunications, radio signals from other communication sources, including and transmitting those signals to other wireless sites.
So Leslie, this is not a data center. The data center is not a telecommunication.
I didn't hear that in her definition either.
It's not in the definition.
But the definition, I mean, really is talking about towers, right? I mean, that's what it sounds. like.
Yeah, towers and antennas, which I think the siting council took over.
Well, we-
Antennas.
I mean, I remember one coming up once because they're gonna put a new antenna on the water tower.
That's right. But I think I think the state may have changed.
Why do we have a special permit at all? Why not X?
I have X's on the last four.
Yeah.
With pending definition after it.
What is the telecommunications facility in the GC currently? What is that?
It's that thing across the street from like the Cumberland Farms, that little building that's, you know, I mean, it's
Houses
very
equipment
unobtrusive.
inside, it's like a little, it looks like a pump station.
So that's not a tower, but
Yeah.
it fits under a definition of telecommunications.
Right, it's almost like a data center.
Which means if that building fits under the definition, are we allowing those types of buildings and could we allow that building's use in other zones if it fits under the telecommunications definition?
Correct.
So I would say if that fits under it, it could be allowed in other zones under special permit, because then we'd have a little bit more authority over that. If it was all towers, I'd say not at all.
Right, it's not towers at all.
So
So the question is whether we want to X out the 75 zone or entertain that kind of facility with a special permit in the 75 zone.
I'd get rid of,
If we don't do towers, then. I mean. It seems like the telecommunication facilities are not that tall. So,
They are
it's-
tiny little things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally the size of a pump station.
No,
Well,
not the data centers that
Yeah,
Bob's
they-
talking
they-
about.
I mean,
These are massive, massive energy consuming facilities that take up, they can be very large.
And it's not promoting housing, it's not promoting jobs, it's not consistent with what
What
we're
if we
trying to do
limited
here.
the
So I would
size?
just X out. I mean, I can see leaving the special permit to encompass the facility that already exists for the first column, but I would remove it from the 75 just to avoid any hassle with that. You know, data center stuff is very emotional, and it doesn't fit with what the objective.
So if we put data communications facility of less than 5,000 square feet. 2,000 square feet.
To be allowed, or, I don't know what your question is.
Yes, so that if we're not ever looking, so if we put an X at under
75.
the, under the 75.
Yep, I'm okay with that, but that was, because that's what I was.
Okay,
was
so we
my-
put an X under the 75.
Yep.
But in order to protect the GC,
We say it's less than 5,000 square.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now there's a building at the corner of. Across from Washington Park, right, on Mitchell.
Yeah,
That used to belong to SNET, correct?
I think it
It's like
belongs
a
to
switch.
Verizon, right?
Or Breeze Line or whoever, I mean, somebody. But that was when SNET had it, that was like a switching center, right? And that, I mean, that's fairly unobtrusive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's not an attractive building, but it's.
It's also in the R52, R5.2 rather.
Yeah, it's not even in the
It
commercial.
doesn't buzz and it doesn't blow.
No, I mean, it just sits there and has, I actually don't know what it does anymore. It was like, I think, a TV operation at the time.
Phantom.
So anyway, I mean, so that kind of thing is in the commercial zone is probably would be acceptable, correct? I mean, we wouldn't be horrified by that in the GC zone, right? I mean, it's in a residential zone, so that's not. It's if it was,
Well, I think, if we do it, Leslie suggested it, just limit the size and allow it by special permit in GC. Then we cover the existing.
Yeah.
Use
Yep.
and other similar scale future use. And then keep it out of the zones where we have a different intent.
Do we know if we've had any complaints about that small one across from Cumberland?
well,
I haven't heard it.
the person who lives next door to it, I think, came to talk to you about it, was it? She was
Yes,
worried about the
initially.
screen.
Yes,
Right.
initially there was an issue about the screening and it was arborvitae versus clematis versus,
Right.
and it was all,
They were willing to work with her to screen it to her satisfaction.
and I have not heard a peep since.
But nothing regarding noise or lights or.
Nope.
Traffic.
Nope.
No, it's got a couple of big air handlers outside to cool it. But other than that, I don't think it's got any problem. I mean, the person who lived next door was happy with how it
Yeah.
turned out. Boating, beach and marina, so we got boat club, beach club and marina. I guess the first one is a primary use and it's Xed out everywhere. And it's as an accessory use, it's given a special permit in the GCR 50, correct? Is that
That's correct.
Because there's an existing one.
right?
I'm trying to remember if we made the special permit as a primary or as accessory.
According to mine, we did it as, according to my notes, we did a special permit for both.
I agree. That's what I have mine
I have special permit, but then it's crossed out.
as. Yeah, what I did, Leslie, in my notes is we had two lines originally and neither one of them said primary or accessory.
Yeah.
I added that, but we put special permit in the GCR 50 next to the other one.
Got it. primary, accessory. Special permit, special.
And then we spent an inordinate amount of time imagining things that could be in the GCR 50. That could involve a marina adjacent to be developed.
Okay,
So it's special permit.
Well, yeah, I think we did a special permit for both because the GCR 50 was adjacent to the water.
Right.
Yeah.
So we wanted to, you know, if someone had a good idea about how to use the water, how to incorporate the water to their development, we thought that'd be fine, right? So.
Yeah.
So I think the GCR 50 is also a special permit on the primary use as well.
right, but we're not turning it into Pine Island Marina stretched along.
Well, so maybe that's where we have to be careful. Right, because do we want to,
That's beyond.
There's so many things that somebody would have to do to be able to
Okay.
make that happen.
Yeah.
so we're okay with the primary, with that as a primary use in GC. R50.
Mhm.
Okay, that's by special. All right. Okay, moving on. We're getting close to the end. Manufacturing, so we've got accessory use. And then we've got primary use, and then we have light manufacturing, we took out heavy manufacturing. So. If light go ahead.
Is there a definition of manufacturing that currently exists?
We added, Leslie sent one out of light manufacturing.
Yeah, light manufacturing exists, I just don't know what the difference between light manufacturing and manufacturing is.
We,
Because light manufacturing seems pretty broad, actually.
It does, and it also speaks to it being an accessory use.
Oh, so you can't have, actually, that would make sense. That would, could be the definition of manufacturing, light manufacturing.
Well, you know, for example, in GCR 35. The specific use that we just approved for sailmaking. Is. You could think of that as accessory to a retail. Because if they're gonna sell a sail. They could make it on site and sell it. And the other aspects of, you know, sail repair or whatever is accessory to the retail.
I think they talked about how they take the sail out, bring it to the boat. Put it on as opposed to what color would you like from our display board?
I think that's still accessory, just because you're delivering it somewhere else doesn't mean it's not part of it's not an accessory. It's the primary use.
So there's, in words and terms, there is no. There's no definition of manufacturing in there in the current rates.
I think manufacturing just blanketed as it is, not light manufacturing, would like especially the primary use, site plan seems not enough scrutiny for a lot of these districts, for a lot of these zones. And accessory use, I also would say is not enough scrutiny for some of these zones. However, we don't have a definition of manufacturing to work on, so
Yeah,
that's up for
well,
interpretation.
Yeah, well, that's-
Like,
the light manufacturing, I mean, that was basically as a. The way in the definition that you sent out, Leslie, the light manufacturing it's basically an accessory use to, you had to be selling the product. At that site, correct? I mean, that, you could like make it in the back, but you had to sell it there. And you have the definition that you sent out?
it says retail, comma, business / personal service use.
It doesn't specify it needs to be sold there.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that too, but I mean. We don't want to be, I don't know that we want to include manufacturing of any scale. I don't know, we get too limited here and we start running out of options, but I'm just thinking of examples that might rush to fill spaces.
When I think of manufacturing, I think of like, you know, very intensive machines and a lot of floor space that's required for it. And I feel bad for something that's like sail making, right? Because that doesn't sound like a very intensive process, and it seems like it would be perfect for like GCR 50. But you wouldn't want real welding manufacturing going on in GCR 50 either, right?
So. It seems to me that it again goes back to the issue of what is the impact? If you are a jewelry maker, or if you are making dentures, or if you are doing something that basically is fairly quiet and during normal operating hours, which could be controlled with conditions of approval. When I think about these things, I try and think about them like, what if they're right below me? What if I have the apartment right above it? What do I want to hear? What do I want to smell? What do I not want to hear? What do I not want to smell? Where do I, don't want to hear people clumping around?
Sure.
In the middle of the night. So soldering, I don't know if motherboards are still a thing, but the equivalent of them if they're not. If somebody's sitting there soldering a computer piece, it's, that's not a very intensive, it's an intensive use in terms of concentrating on it, but it's not an intensive use in terms of its impact, within 15 feet in any direction.
I would say that our current definition for light manufacturing is very broad, and it's hard to make a judgment based on it alone. So I think if we tweak that definition and included definitions for manufacturing and heavy manufacturing, this would be an easier conversation there.
I have for a definition of manufacturing, it's the creation of new products either from raw materials or components. Examples include automotive companies, bakeries, shoemakers, tailors, as they create products rather than providing services.
It's crazy that bakery is considered manufacturing, but
Yeah, and I think that the light manufacturing definition that we have tonight, when viewed as an accessory use, I think that might be the level of manufacturing that we're interested in entertaining in these zones. And that we remove other manufacturing, heavy or otherwise, as a primary use. Because I don't believe that was ever the intent with these zones.
Right, and that was actually my comment, was that the accessory use is, in the manufacturing zone, that's actually included in the light manufacturing definition. It says that's an accessory use.
so I agree that we should
to a
only.
retailer, I'm sorry, business personal services use.
I agree, we should only have accessory use manufacturing. I think that makes the most sense. We don't want, shipping constantly coming in and out. But I think it's still too broad of a definition, because you could really manufacture anything in the back and sell, as long as you're selling it in a storeroom. That fits that definition.
Well, even if you were manufacturing something and taking it to another site in the city, it would still fit this definition as I read it.
Mhm.
But
This may help us. The definition says light manufacturing isn't as clear cut.
do we have other bumpers in place for impact that we would have control
How
over,
about square feet?
or noise, or
Yeah, I think noise and dust and glare and odors,
Yeah.
and we have that in a separate section in regulations.
that's what I'm saying, that might be the boundaries that make what ifs of light manufacturing manageable.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That things that we have elsewhere in the regulations in terms of emanating light and noise and vapors and vibrations and whatnot, that if we have the ability to limit those, then it makes the breadth of light manufacturing definition not so threatening. Because the what ifs are kind of contained by impact.
Other places.
Yeah. And so whether you're selling them right out of the front door, or you are, shuttling it across town to sell it elsewhere, it's an accessory. Not really accessory use for the space. So you'd have to
Maybe
be
the
handshaking
question
there,
is-
but
Its level of compatibility with other uses.
This definition includes environmental impacts.
So can you send that to me? And then. Like, I'm not sure that doing this. In a building that also contains residential. Is really the best.
I agree, but we should allow it in a store that makes it better, like a sailmaker.
Right.
And that's what we're.
That would be an accessory use
Right.
to the sailmaking or the sales selling.
is assembling floral arrangements light manufacturing by the definition we have in front of us?
I mean, baking is by the definition we have in front of us.
Well,
I've used,
I thought your
Accessory.
definition said not to include, I remember reading
There
something
is
not to
a-
include bakeries, right? Specifically, I saw that language somewhere.
I don't remember writing
I,
that. but that
I
doesn't-
don't see it, I don't see it in what you sent out, but I.
Include
maybe I
food
hallucinate.
industrial processing as not allowed. I remember I was very tired.
Well, right, but this is not to include bakeries.
Well, that would be food industrial processing. We weren't talking about bakeries the other night, we were talking about lobsters.
Yeah,
We have the higher size.
Well, no, I'm just thinking of impact.
but, right, but you don't wanna, I mean, you don't wanna exclude a bakery from your, right, from your GC zone, because it's like, comes in as, it turns out to be.
But-
Even if you
If they
exclude
make the
food,
donuts elsewhere.
even if you exclude food, there's a sewing shop in Groton town that can sew your clothes that you ordered. So why can't we have it there? But that would be manufacturing here. For sewing the clothes. So
Yeah, and when you're sitting there with an applicant who says, and in this corner, I wanna sew clothes, and in that room, I wanna make donuts, and.
Well, there's an alterations
In the GC.
in the GC zone right now, alterations, business, right? They sell clothes there. They
This
don't-
is retail service.
They don't.
It's not
yeah,
making
it's-
anything
it's
from
a-
scratch.
Yeah, that's a retail, I mean,
well,
it's
converting,
obviously,
altering, that's part of manufacturing.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously, accessory to the, to the retail use, but
So it fits under the light manufacturing definition that we have.
sort of, I
Yeah.
guess, but,
And next door, reupholstering.
Yeah,
Light manufacturing, so,
But I mean, we're just treating them as.
but it's accessory to a retail, it's a service, it's
Yeah. Right.
sales, so again, I'm okay with it being accessory. As long as we have all the other boundaries in place to limit impact to other uses on the same parcel and neighbors.
So light manufacturing when accessory. To. Retail,
Well, using the definition, retail, business, personal, service.
So the definition already specifies when accessory to retail business. So we actually don't need a separate line for manufacturing accessory, because that's just.
That's
light. That's just light.
And I propose that that's the only manufacturing line that we allow in these.
so we take everything out except light manufacturing.
As an accessory use.
Do we want,
It's still fine.
should it be site plan? Or should we have a higher level of scrutiny than that? Especially in some of these like the GC, GCR zones, GC50 zones.
I would think, I think in the GC50 zone, we gotta have an X myself. But that's just me.
I agree with your thinking, but if the definition is including sale making, I feel bad, because that's like the perfect spot for a sale maker.
Yeah, well, but he's in GCR 35,
Okay.
so I mean, that's where he's, so he's.
But, you know, when they build a nice building across the street with residences up top and retail down below,
Wow.
you think that's the space for me. You know,
I think that
the difference between site plan and special permit is what bumpers have we installed that allow us to say it's too much impact?
I would like to see special permit at very least for GC for 35 and for 50.
Site plan for
The other
the other two?
I think so.
6943.
I think the properties there are more suitable for manufacturing.
So I'm sorry, what was that?
Special permit for
You're
GC
gonna send it to
35
her
and
first,
50.
yeah.
No, it's. Whether it's that number or so.
And then site plan for
The other two, yeah.
the other three.
The other two were 5.750 and 75. And then a special permit for the first three,
Oh, okay,
just so that way, you know, when if we have someone coming in for 50, we can put them under a higher level of scrutiny.
so was the GC, was that a special permit too?
Yes.
Yes, I'd go so, I mean,
So the cellmaker guy,
that's. Yeah,
when he had to get a special permit. Yeah, I mean, you know,
mhm. Well, I think that my issue is that light manufacturing is such a broad definition as it currently stands, that. And these three districts that I outlined are far more, their lot sizes are much smaller, they're much closer together. They're a bit more residential focused. Or mixed use focused, and light manufacturing doesn't really match mixed use as much as a bakery or a restaurant does.
okay, I mean, you know, it's not like we're saying you can't do it. You
Yeah.
just have to. All right. And heavy manufacturing, are we going to leave it in there with X's or just take it out?
If we get a definition, I'd leave it in, but if we don't have a definition, I'd take it out.
All right, medical marijuana dispensary, special permit in GC and everything else is X. That's what I have.
That's what we
And
had.
medical marijuana production facility is X. Now, I was just, I hate to do this, but go back a little bit, but, so I was just looking at the email that came in from Colleen. A couple of thoughts that she had, so. And they actually sort of make sense. One of them is for row house. Okay, so back on page 1. Where we have site plan, special permit, XX. I think she says, I think they could fit the aesthetic quite easily of the GCR and GCR 35. Generally fine, they may fit the category of the missing middle housing that's being talked about.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so when we talked through it the other night, we also imagined GCR 50 might be appropriate.
Right, so kind of
So
special
with the right
permit.
development, you know?
And so I think what she's saying there is, you know, site plan maybe GCR 35 too, but we currently have special permit. So, that's the only, that was the point she was making there. And, you know, we can leave it as special permit. I have special permit for that. This- Site plan GC, special permit.
I'm fine with site plan for 35 for row house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Based on the
Uh,
similarity to adjacent properties and.
All right, and her other comment was, and this again, I think is worth considering. Because it didn't come up when we were talking about, it was theater. And, you know, her idea is, for theaters, conference centers, and gathering places, we may want to look at making these based on number of people rather than theater versus specific gathering places, so. You know, if
I
we,
do think that a theater can fall easily into a place of public assembly.
right. Which, you know, which would make sense. But. We're talking about site plans and special permits, but, you know, I think her idea is maybe to break it down like we did on, it sounds like on retail and office. Where it's got to do, only we're talking about the number of people that it can accommodate. In terms of what kind of approval that would be. Right,
I think that's a really good idea.
that's, yeah, I mean,
That makes a lot of
that's kind of a
sense.
sensible idea to me.
And we can even get rid of conference center and put that in with assembly, just assuming that conference center is a larger place of assembly.
Yeah.
Are you saying adding theater to the definition of?
Place of assembly,
That basically, place of assembly. You develop. We could develop any number we want, but let's start with three. 3 different categories, a few people, a medium number of people, a lot of people.
I think it's a good idea.
and that's Coleman's points, and I think it's, you know, and it would be similar to what we're doing with retail and, you know,
Yeah.
based on square footage. And this would be, you know, based on capacity.
Yeah.
So size.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would help us, zero those in for parking calculations too.
Right,
Give them each their own category.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, so that sounds like it. Sounds like it makes sense, so. What's next?
The,
It's going on 9 o'clock, so.
okay. Right, I'm gonna look at the whole light manufacturing thing and the greenhouse commercial thing, if I can figure out a way to put it all together.
Okay.
Um,
In terms of the definitions and the parking regulations and things like that. So I sent you my comments based on
Right.
my notes from previous meetings, so. We don't need to necessarily review those, you just want to incorporate them,
Yeah.
get us an updated copy.
Yeah.
Go forward, how far are we from being able to put together? Text amendment application, do you think?
So. The one thing that I would,
Or I guess, what else do you need, we need to talk about before we can do that?
outdoor lighting standards. I'd like to have. And I have it, I just need to. At this point, some things are just a matter of formatting. I'd like to have outdoor lighting standards by foot candle, so that when we ask for photometric plans, we have something to look at the plans against. And the standards on that stuff are. They've been pretty well vetted by lighting professionals. We've done parking. Signage is another question. I think we should do, but I'm also. I do think we need to do them. The question is, does that go into phase two? And knock these out, or. I mean, I can pull sign regulations from. Well, I have them, which,
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, if, after a while, we're rewriting the whole book. Right? So, I mean, I would vote for putting signage into phase two, but. To focus on. To focus on the, sort of what's on our plate now and the things that we, like the outdoor lighting standards are important. In terms of, managing the impact on surrounding properties and those kind of things. So I say, let's go ahead with that. Put signage on hold. Everybody, that makes sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think let's just get this out in front of the public.
Signage as a later phase effort, we could do a text amendment for multiple zones at once to unify signage requirements. Is that what you're imagining?
Yeah, just, I mean, because the signing, the signage is, right now, it's like. In commercial zones, it's this, I mean, we can still do it that way.
Yeah.
Right, we can just update it. What else was there?
I think we have, I mean, we have spent a lot of time on a lot
Yeah.
of this, and I
Yeah.
think we have got. We'll find the important thing we don't have. Yeah, at some point, but I do think we have a lot of things, I would say we have 99% of the important stuff,
The document you're sifting through
yes.
is far more expensive than the snippets that we've been dealing with for the last few months. I think that we should take the opportunity to get the whole file. Your best new rev. With all the changes, because we've looked at this section, we've really pounded on 3 or 4 of these sections.
Yeah.
And not touched the stuff that we dealt with a year or so ago. So I think we should have, end to end. Latest rev. That delete all the other revs, and we're working on this one. And we are able to then comb that for consistency, for red herrings, for, things that don't work, they're contradictory things. And because otherwise we would have spent many nights working on this table, many nights working on definitions and things, and then forgotten all about the rest of this stuff. And we're asking, to make this a sweeping change, it's got
Right.
implications. I don't think we need to spend the same level of time that we have on this table with other sections, because we've
Yeah.
already done some of that homework, but I think we need to see the document end to end. So that we can provide you backup, provide ourselves the opportunity to go, hey, in light of discussions we've had, is this what we meant? And then start, then we can cruise through the whole document. Latest rev, because this is what we want to put out.
I'm fine with that. As long as you all understand that takes time.
Yeah.
So
yes,
that's gonna.
We will have to have that before we put it forward as a recommended change. We will have to have seen it.
Right.
Otherwise, we aren't
I
gonna
have
go.
I have no problem with that.
If we could just go over what exactly is the plan to put this out to the public and then have public hearing and pass it, like, what's the schedule for all that?
Okay, in terms of a timeline, I'm not sure that we have a schedule. But back to what we talked about when we first started this, we're looking to do this as responsibly and quickly as possible.
Right.
And we all agreed on that in the beginning.
So can we drop that down into some dates? What are we talking about? 2 months, a month, September?
We
Like,
are not.
I'm not
It's-
advocating it. I just want to know logistically, so I can start to inform people to participate, get ready to share your,
So let me, before we drop it into a calendar, let me just talk about the pieces of the process as I see it. One is that we put together the entire document with and show the changes. So people can see it. Secondly,
Can I amplify that a little bit?
sure,
We talked about having a public information interactive session
that was next.
Yeah.
that was not a public hearing for the purpose of presenting, where there's no back and forth. Collaborative discussion, you know, putting stuff up on the board, this is what we're looking at, hey, what about this, you know, and socializing the changes that we're making. And you know, in a no pressure situation where this is the culmination of the work. We think it's a, you know, darn near finished product. Here's the information center, you know, a session to socialize it. And then we take, you know, a meeting to make sure we're settled with our final draft, and then we set the public hearing.
And I agree with that. I think that was a great approach, but that's kind of what I'm trying to address. When are we having that? Can we drop that into a calendar? Because I need to schedule, like, how do I tell people, and when are we gonna have that piece ready? To have that, like, discussion and then go to application, public hearing and onward.
And I really wish that I could give you a date, and, I only say that because I am a one-person department.
Yep.
So
I think we work backwards from the day of the public information thing. And we look at how many more meetings will it take for us to get through a final draft that we're ready to take public. And then how long will it take Leslie to collate all these changes we've talked about? You know, and get the images, you know, the doctored images.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't wanna force this along any quicker than it should be. It just, is starting to sound like 6 months, a year. And so all I'm just saying is the sooner we can actually attach everything Jason's saying to calendar, the sooner we can involve the public with
So
what we're
here-
thinking, and then get something.
So here's my thinking on this. You'll have done an amazing amount of work and an amazing job, for which I am incredibly grateful. You all have been an incredible pleasure to work with. And what I would like to see is that I will put together as quickly as I can and as accurately as I can a full document that shows the changes and that is formatted in the way that we need it formatted. Which basically means it all goes into the Adobe InDesign software program. And I don't like to do that until we're really toward the end, because it's not a complicated thing. It's just every time I use it, I have to learn how to use it again. And then I remember, and it's like, okay, do this. So, but the other thing is, what I think would work well, instead of having me get up and talk about this thing ad nauseum to the public and explaining every section, what I think would work really well is to have each of you have a section that you prepare a presentation on, do a PowerPoint. We have the documents and images from the renderer, and we are able to say, this is what it could look like. It's not a, this is what it will look like. We don't know that. We don't know that because we're not developing it. We don't own the property. We don't have the money. We're not picking the paint colors. So everybody will get a section to develop a presentation on. We'll do a presentation to the public. I would love to be able to have this out to the public and have the public understand what we're doing, certainly by the end of the year at the latest. I'm not sure we get a vote before the end of the year. If we can get a vote before the end of the year, that would be great.
So can we have that document by next regular meeting so the chair can then schedule that public event?
I think
Before
that
the-
honestly, I think that that is optimistic, given everything that is on my, I would love for that to happen. There is nothing I would love more than to be able to sit home where it's nice and quiet for a month and get it done.
The only frustration, and I'm not, I understand you're in the limitations of the budget and what you're dealing with the city. I'm just saying, you know, we pulled back the application months ago. And we discussed the urgency of housing. We took in public comment. We've done a lot of work now. This doesn't seem like rocket science. Like, we should be able to now have a draft and then have a conversation with the public and then put it in, like, this was what I was worried about before. If we go too long, if we're gonna go 6 months, a year, and we could absolutely go through this over and over again and make it even better over time, or just keep changing stuff, right?
Yeah.
I personally would like to see as quickly as possible where we're at with this. We've incorporated all of the discussions and the objections from the public. I'd like to get public feedback
Mhm.
and then submit the application, right? And then be able to have done something to encourage, you know, housing. Right, and
agree.
so that's just my only comment on it, and I understand your constraints on it. I think it's our duty as a public body to make sure that we're doing that as quickly as we can. So my 2 cents is, if we can get that by next meeting and then have the chair decide how to engage that public forum, I can socialize it, we can all discuss it, and let's find out if there's other objections we haven't met, and then just get this thing done and see if we can encourage housing.
I
Yeah.
don't disagree with you at all. I wish I had a solid answer to say, yes, I can get this to you by next month. I can tell you I will work,
Can we make that the goal?
yes.
Try and do that.
Yep.
Try
So
and have,
no special meeting this month,
right,
and
but get us something we can talk about on the 17th of September,
okay.
right? That's the next-
What I might do is try and send them to you by section as I get them done. Some of them will be things that we've talked about, some of them may be things we haven't talked about. But if I know I can get it out to all of you, so you can, just trust me, sitting down to read this in one fell swoop, I wouldn't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah, but at some point, we're gonna want to. I'm okay with getting sections, hey, this was easy, low hanging fruit, not much to change here, get it out. Because like Bob said, a year ago from, December last year, we were ready to put forth the text amendment, and the major objections were height requirements.
Yeah.
And we've been working on height requirements and other things. All good to make the final product better. But we've rehashed some of the stuff we did the previous year. And I don't want to get to the point where it's been a year from public hearing to public hearing, and you know what I mean? If the only changes were some heights. That's what's going to be distilled out of it from what the public sees. The work we've done obviously is more substantive than that, but
Okay,
we need to get it done.
I do not disagree.
So we're gonna try to have that pulled together so we can spend our meeting in September walking through it.
Yeah, I mean, what, do you have a better sense yet about the timeline for the artist and the renderings and all that jazz?
I am meeting with, I am probably going to send all of you photographs of existing conditions.
Mhm.
And ask you all to pick 3 images that you would like to see, what they would look like.
With an artist area in the
Redone.
building.
Yeah, redone based upon these regulations. Because all the bulk stuff has to go to the renderer
How long does it take them to do it?
for the 3 or 4 images that we expect to get. It's between 4 and 6 weeks.
So if we get if we get the pictures so that we can pick what form choose, this week we can make a
Yep.
decision by next.
It's when the clock starts, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Can I make a suggestion on that? Let's say we get the full packet next meeting, we look at it, we like it. And we figure out how to engage the public and have that date, right? At that time, the public can discuss whether they understand this is, our height restrictions has met their concerns. If people bring up more concerns about visual things, we can add more pictures and more understandings that then if we haven't captured what you're saying right now, if we haven't captured an understanding so the public can relate that we're not, have we blending, the periphery areas in there and not blocking views
Yeah,
and things
there-
like
there are
that. So that's one of the reasons I
scientists
think
today.
getting to the engagement of the public is gonna be really important. Because we're gonna hear from them before we submit the full application, what their concern,
want
and if
to,
they-
right,
if it's a
that's-
rational concern. Then, we can relook at stuff, and if it's something that's a distortion because they don't understand the contour of the topography. We know where to spend a little more time in creating the visuals that will show them that that's not actually an issue, right?
Right, but I think based on the, on the comments, it would behoove us to have the visuals when we go and talk to the public.
Oh,
Have
absolutely.
the public discussion.
Yes.
share the visuals. Right,
Yeah.
because this is a picture's worth 1,000 words here.
and what is gonna be going to the renderer is the bulk regulations that we've developed, the images, the existing condition photographs. And a topo map
Yeah.
and the proposed zoning map, and I mean, and the person that we've engaged to do this understands how to read all.
No, and I very much concur with the chair on this. Those who are against development at all will distort it. So it's gonna be very important to show what 75 feet looks like
That's
in
the whole
each
thing.
particular area. So that,
Well, we
so that the
only,
conversation about factual issues, not like we're showing a picture of Berlin burned out at the Second World War, and because someone, has a personal vendetta.
Right.
So I'd like to just make sure that we, I concur, visuals are super important.
Absolutely.
But like I said, if we should do our best to have it ready for that public engagement. And if there's any issues that come up there that we need to fill in the gaps, then we do that as well in the application to address those other issues.
Yeah.
So that we feel comfortable with what we're submitting.
Yep.
So we can stand behind the presentation.
All right. Other
Yeah,
comments?
I would rather not spend too much time. Even remotely. Providing feedback on images to use for the renderings. I think that. I think that we can trust you that, you know what we're looking for. The contentious things that we want to have artist renderings for, with all the caveats about, this isn't a building that's planned to be built, this is a worst case scenario, right? Looking from Church Street, what does a building that meets the 35-foot height requirement and the GCR 35, and then across the street from that, a 50-foot building with the setback, what does that look like from Church Street? And I think once we answer that, maybe even one from Thames, looking north on Thames, you got your 35 feet over here, you got your 50 feet over there. And then, there's the top of the Church Street homes on this, above there. Those two perspectives, again, being total, imagination, because we don't have a proposal to work with. I think that would help us visually set the tone for what we've done, taking public feedback.
Yep.
And then we answer the mail on how many possible homes could this, rezoning, bring in? And we know that number now with the work we've already done. With the number of dwelling units per acre, we can give a rough calculation. Barring other site constraints, we can say that number is about this many, maximum, absolute maximum, depending on how they build the buildings.
Yeah, and that's where I think engaging the public is gonna be important. To see whether we get those kind of silly discussions about like 5,000 housing units stuffed into this area.
Right.
Because honestly, the issue is, and I know I'm on the soapbox here, but there's a housing problem and we have to figure out how, we have to get this off the board, and we can't, there's a whole population in the city that supports us doing something. So we need to, we're gonna step into the fire here a little bit. We've done the work. Let's get this stuff done. Let's get out there and have these discussions. And and put something forward that's gonna promote development. We're not, it's not that large an area of the city.
Right.
So, to talk about 5,000 units is not gonna happen, right? And maybe we'll pick up a couple hundreds, thousand, I don't know what possibly could be, but we just need to push through this stuff, and that's my opinion.
Yep, I mean, I certainly, I certainly agree with you. You build some forward momentum. And, and we have done a lot of work, we've taken careful consideration of the input that we received. So it's just a matter of, I think at this point, putting it together and moving forward. And if there's anything that, I could do or anybody can do to help with that, give me a holler, I'll be glad to pitch in if I can. And I can change the help it out. Anybody else, any more comments? So, good.
If we leave Leslie to all this yeoman's work of collating the draft, and we look at it mid-September, and we have a special meeting maybe within a couple weeks later to kind of review the final draft, cruise through it, do some homework, come prepared, cruise through a final draft. We could be looking at, an October public info session, followed by, maybe quickly followed by a special meeting to capture comments from that section, integrate as necessary, and then set the public notice for the public hearing, which could then be in November.
That I would agree with that, like, have the public event, have a meeting, and get the application submitted right after that, after we incorporate in any additional changes or input, because, we might have some greatly insightful.
Yep.
You know,
But again, the level of change that we're looking at making, more than likely, we will not have months worth of work to incorporate public comments. We will
Yeah.
have some, spirited feedback about this and some insightful feedback about that. And, we may have some tweaks to make or some, we'll get through the public info session and we'll see what we get, but the most aggressive timeline in my mind gets us to a public hearing starting in November.
I would agree with stuff. I think that's.
Okay, we put that in there.
I think that's a reasonable target. All right, let's see, report of commission, anybody have anything? Commissioners? All right, Leslie, any written public comments?
Only ones that came from Colleen, Fay, and
Okay. Report of staff, anything?
wasn't this enough?
Okay, good enough.
Not entertained.
Nothing else. All right, adjournment, motion to adjourn, Mr. Boris, second. Mr. James. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? 500, we're adjourned at 9:23.
Early.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well, the effort you put in.
Oh.
I can't even imagine. So,
You definitely can't imagine.
No, I can't.
We worked really hard.
yeah,
That is what we were on.
well, the other one is bailing out the boat, so it's a lot on you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time. No, I mean, I know, but it is possible. But, so, it's nice job on your mind.
Thank you. Hold on, speaking. First, read it.
As soon as I get a copy, I'll be reading it. Send me anything you want right away. Adios.
Take care, have a good night.
Interesting.